credits, and seniors' health care and drug costs continue to rise at staggering rates. We're here to serve the needs of the American people, not the whims of the health insurance companies. This resolution will cost money and cost lives, and I urge my colleagues to vote against it. I'd be happy to yield to the chairman.
The time of the gentlelady's expired.
I want to. Can you yield?
Yes, I'll yield to the gentleman.
I want to associate myself with the gentlelady's remarks, and I rise in strong opposition to this concurrent resolution.
Thank the gentleman and reserve the balance of my time.
Gentlelady reserves her time. Gentleman from Louisiana.
Mr. Speaker, I yield 3 minutes to the gentleman from Montana, Mr. Reberg.
Gentleman is recognized for 3 minutes.
I thank Mr. Alexander for his leadership on this issue to repeal Obamacare, the funding, defunding. So I rise in support of the resolution. It's impossible in the short time I have to describe the many reasons to justify defunding, repealing, and replacing Obamacare. Today I want to mention one: the adverse effects on those on Medicare. In Montana, this is a huge issue because our population is quite a bit older than other states. Folks have paid into Medicare all their lives, and they rightfully expect the benefits to be there for them. But Medicare is going broke and will be bankrupt in 11 years. Supporters of the new health care law say they've strengthened Medicare and point to the closing of the donut hole on prescription drugs. Let's examine that a little more carefully. The cost to the government to fix the donut hole is about $27 billion between now and 2019. But Obamacare cuts Medicare benefits and reimbursements by more than $500 billion. These cuts aren't being used to save Medicare. They're being used to pay for the cost of new entitlements in Obamacare. For seniors in Montana and the rest of America, this is not a good trade. But that's not all. Most people aren't even aware that Obamacare includes a $210 billion tax increase on Medicare. Again, that money isn't going to be used to save Medicare. This tax will go to pay for the cost of new entitlements. Obamacare cuts Medicare benefits, increases Medicare taxes, and doesn't do anything to protect Medicare. And the new Medicare cuts and taxes, along with the hundreds of billions of dollars in new taxes, penalties, and fees, won't take effect until after the 2012 election. That's not a coincidence. This is a classic bait and switch. We get all the small benefits up front and get hit with a pile of burdens after the 2012 elections. Just one of the many reasons to defund Obamacare now. That's the first step towards replacing it with real reform to rein in health care costs and improve access. I yield back my time.
Gentleman yields back. Gentlelady from Connecticut.
I'm delighted to hear the gentleman from Montana say that he opposes cuts to Medicare. That means I'm going to assume that he will vote against the Ryan budget as well. And with that, I yield 1 minute to the gentlelady from New York, Ms. Lowy.
Gentlelady is recognized for 1 minute.
I rise in strong opposition to the resolution. The House should be debating legislation to create jobs, not procedural tricks to repeal health reform and increase our deficit. Under this resolution, pregnant women and cancer survivors would lose coverage when they most need it. Young adults would lose coverage on their parents' plans. Seniors would pay higher drug costs. Businesses and families would not receive tax credits for affordable coverage. And accountability for large insurers to spend at least 85% of premiums on health benefits would end. Vote against this resolution to preserve vital consumer protections in health reform, reduce costs, and decrease the deficit. And I yield back.
Gentlelady yields back. Gentleman from Louisiana.
Mr. Speaker, I yield 2 minutes to the gentleman from Iowa.
Gentleman from Iowa is recognized for 2 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I thank the gentleman from Louisiana for his work and for yielding on this. And I want to also thank the gentleman from Montana who has drilled into this deeply, and it's a big reason why we're able to be here today. I appreciate his representation of seniors in Montana, and I may well have the privilege of representing the most senior congressional district in all of America. I've watched what's happened not just with the Medicare, but with Obamacare entirely. And when I hear the comments about the whims of the health insurance industry, that may well have been what helped write this bill in the first place, is large health insurance companies. But we had 1,300 of them when we started this process over a year ago. We have fewer today. We had 100,000 possible health insurance policy varieties. We have fewer today. We're looking at a $2.6 trillion in outlays over Obamacare for the first full decade of its implementation, and we've seen 2 federal courts rule Obamacare unconstitutional. We've uncovered the, I think it was intentionally hard to find, numbers that were hidden in the automatic appropriations of Obamacare to the tune of $105.5 billion to be laid out. We're sitting right now on top of $23.6 billion that are being used intensively to implement Obamacare, all the while we expect, and the President surely must expect, the Supreme Court will rule it unconstitutional. Obamacare has been rejected by the American people. It sent 87 freshman Republicans here to Congress to repeal it. Every Republican in not only the House of Representatives but the United States Senate has voted to repeal Obamacare in H.R. 2 and voted to cut off everything that could be ruled in order on the floor in H.R. 1 that would be used to implement or enforce Obamacare. This is the language that cuts off the automatic spending to Obamacare. It puts a freeze on it so the courts can decide, so the will of the people can be reflected not just in the House of Representatives, but eventually in the United States Senate. And also, let's bring a president that will sign this repeal, this unconstitutional takings of American liberty that's known as Obamacare. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield back.
Expired. The gentlelady from Connecticut.
I yield 1 minute to the gentlewoman from California, Ms. Capps.
The gentlewoman from California is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank my colleague, and Mr. Speaker, I rise in strong opposition to this misguided resolution. It's another attempt by the Republicans to take away important consumer protections, return to a health care system that is clearly broken. I strongly oppose this amendment because it is harmful to the American people and to our economy. The majority of Americans, and certainly those in my district, are opposed to this defunding stunt. Seniors do not want to go back to a life of worry about how they will make it through the donut hole. Parents do not want to go back to worrying that their child will be uninsured this summer because she graduates. And small businesses do not want to cancel their employees' health care coverage because they would lose the tax credits to pay for it. The Affordable Care Act is law, and attempts by my Republican colleagues to repeal it have failed. Instead of debating the past, we need to focus on the future. Let's work on creating jobs and strengthening our economy. Vote no on this foolish resolution. I yield back the balance of my time.
Gentlelady's time's expired. The gentleman from Louisiana.
Mr. Speaker, I'll reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman reserves his time. The gentlelady from Connecticut.
Mr. Speaker, can you tell me how much time is left?
The gentlelady from Connecticut has 6.5 minutes remaining, and the gentleman from Louisiana has 2.5 minutes remaining.
If I can ask the gentleman from Louisiana, do you have additional speakers?
No.
So just you to close. Okay, thank you. I yield 2 minutes to the gentleman from California, Mr. Waxman.
The gentleman from California is recognized for 2 minutes.
Mr. Speaker, this resolution would defund the implementation of the Affordable Care Act. This is just another way the Republicans are trying to repeal that law. In the very first week of this Congress, they voted to repeal the health care law, and they said they want to repeal it and replace it. We still have not seen what they propose. They are not proposing reforms to help the middle class. In effect, what they would do is increase the number of uninsured in this country by 50 million people. This is a particularly reprehensible way to end health reform. Stop paying for its implementation. Americans are already benefiting from the law. Seniors are getting discounts on their prescription drugs. Adult children will be able to stay on their parents' insurance until age 26. They would reverse the prohibition against pre-existing condition denials for children, and they would stop allowing consumers access to preventive care with no cost sharing. They pulled the rug out from under current state efforts to develop vibrant, competitive exchange marketplaces, which is the centerpiece for competition in insurance plans to get the consumer's choice. But what is most distressing is the dangers it poses to Medicare, Medicaid, and the Children's Health Insurance Program, our health care safety net. According to a letter from Secretary Sebelius, the Affordable Care Act modifies, and I'm quoting, the Affordable Care Act modifies and improves almost every Medicare payment system, If this resolution were enacted, the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services would not be able to use any funds to administer payments based on any rate calculated on the basis of provisions of the Affordable Care Act, which is to say virtually all rates. Medicare and Medicaid could grind to a halt. The Secretary goes on to say, this resolution would adversely affect health care in rural areas. CMS would no longer be able to provide the bonus payments to primary care and general surgery physicians for eligible services. I ask for another 30 seconds.
I yield the gentleman. Let me do
She also says about fraud, waste, and abuse. The Affordable Care Act also gives CMS new tools to fight fraud and helps us move from a pay-and-chase system to a comprehensive prevention-focused strategy. This resolution would substantially impede CMS's proven and successful efforts to reduce waste and fraud in the healthcare system, resulting in increased erroneous payments. This is a harmful resolution to the interests of the American people, and I urge my colleagues to oppose it. Yield back the balance of my time.
Gentleman's time has expired. The gentlelady from Connecticut.
I yield 1 minute to the gentleman from New Jersey, Mr. Pallone.
Gentleman from New Jersey is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you. All I hear from the other side, the gentleman from Iowa, is trying to rehash the campaign, talking about who got elected in November, saying that the president should be defeated so we have a new president. What are you doing to create jobs? It's 100 days of the Republican majority. I don't see a single job creation bill. Now, the Democrats, with our health care reform, we're trying to expand options, give people low-cost insurance, end discrimination, look for new ways of training doctors so that we have more doctors to cover people. We're trying to give the American people options and choices and eliminate all the problems that they've had with the health care system. And the Republicans say, no, get rid of it, defund it. How many times are we going to vote on the same thing? And then later today, you're going to come back and try to destroy Medicare and say that the elderly should not have health care options and should have to go out and buy their insurance and maybe get a little help from the government. Or if they have to go to a nursing home, you're going to block grant Medicaid and say, well, the nursing home may not be available to them, or the quality of the nursing home care will be really terrible, again, as it may have been years ago. So I don't understand what you're up to. Look for the American people. Look to create jobs for them. Look to create health care options. Don't destroy. Don't destroy.
Gentleman's time has expired. Gentlelady from Connecticut.
I yield 1 minute to the gentleman from Connecticut, Mr. Courtney.
Connecticut's recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Among the many programs which others have talked about that would be blown up with this measure, the Early Retiree Reinsurance Program, which is one of the most successful aspects of the health care law, will be blown up. Over 5,000 employers all across America, over half the Fortune 500 companies like Coca-Cola, General Electric, UTC, General Dynamics have all signed up for this program, which, using the same principles as flood insurance, is buttressing and strengthening early retiree benefits, which have been collapsing over the last 20 years. These are the companies that are going to go out and hire people, particularly young people, because early retirement allows their workforce to actually have its natural change so that young people can find jobs. The economy created 200,000 jobs last month. It's because of programs like the Early Retiree Reinsurance Program, which the health care law created. We should not end that program by passing this resolution. These employers have signed up in good faith, and that good faith deserves our commitment to follow through on the program that this country offered them. That's a strategy. That's a winning strategy to create jobs for this country. I yield back the balance of my time.
Gentleman's time has expired. The gentlelady from Connecticut.
I yield 1 minute to the gentlewoman from Maryland, Mr. Edwards.
Gentlelady from Maryland is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I feel like I'm in the movie Groundhog Day. This is the conversation that we had last year. It's the conversation that we had the year before. And I cannot believe that we're standing here today when we should be talking about creating jobs in this country for the millions of people who are unemployed, instead of taking away their health care, instead of taking away the ability of a young person up to age 26 to stay on their parents' health care plan. We're talking about
taking away the ability of young people who have children who have pre-existing conditions to be denied coverage once again instead of creating jobs. Instead of creating jobs, Mr. Speaker, we're here telling seniors that we want them to reach into their pockets and into their retirement to pay for outrageous prescription drug coverage. We're standing here, instead of creating jobs, we're telling small businesses that you're not going to get a tax credit to provide health care insurance for your business. I mean, this is ridiculous, and Mr. Speaker, I have to tell you, the American people must be wondering what it is that this Republican majority is doing when they want to rip off seniors, rip off children, and stop health care for the American people. And with that, I yield.
Gentlelady's time has expired. The gentlelady from Connecticut.
Mr. Speaker, how much time is left?
Gentlelady has 1 minute remaining.
I yield 1 minute to the gentlewoman from Illinois, Ms. Schakowsky.
The gentlelady is recognized for 1 minute.
Finally, the United States of America made real the possibility of life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, all of which are literally impossible unless health care is a right for all in our great country. This resolution goes in the opposite direction. A vote in favor of this resolution tells Americans and small businesses that they will be left to do battle with insurance companies on their own, insurance companies that will once again refuse coverage, deny claims, and subject them to double-digit premium increases. And under their budget plan, they now want to end Medicare and leave seniors and disabled people to the mercies of private insurers. Enough is enough. I yield back.
Gentlelady yields back. Does the gentlelady from Connecticut reserve?
I reserve about how much time is left?
15 seconds remains.
And I think the gentleman from Louisiana has the right to close. In that 15 seconds, let me just say they will defund health care, they will end Medicare, they're going to kick seniors out of nursing homes, and send our health care back to the insurance companies. It shows you where my colleagues on the other side of the aisle are, and I urge my colleagues to vote against this measure.
Gentlelady's time has expired. The gentleman from Louisiana.
Mr. Speaker, a key component of this spending agreement is a guaranteed up or down vote in the Senate on a provision that would prohibit any funds in this act or any previous act from being used to carry out the Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act. Let's return to Congress its power to review this funding annually and exercise full oversight. House Concurrent Resolution 35 does just that. At a time when we are being called on to rein in government spending, the American taxpayer deserves this vote. I urge my colleagues to support this enrolled resolution to deliver on that promise today and call on the Senate to do the same. Mr. Speaker, thank you, and I yield back.
Gentleman yields back his time. All time for debate has expired. Pursuant to House 218, the concurrent resolution is considered read, and the previous question is ordered. Those in favor of the adoption of the concurrent resolution signify so by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it.
Yeas and nays.
The ayes and nays are requested. Those favoring a vote by the ayes and nays will rise and remain standing. A sufficient number having arisen, the ayes and nays are ordered. Pursuant to Clause 8 of Rule 20, further proceedings on this question will be postponed. For what purpose does the gentleman from Mississippi seek recognition?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Pursuant to House Resolution 218, I call up House Concurrent Resolution 36, directing the Clerk of the House of Representatives to make a correction in the enrollment of H.R. 1473 and ask for its immediate consideration.
Will report the title of the concurrent resolution.
House Concurrent Resolution 36. Concurrent resolution directing the Clerk of the House of Representatives to make a correction in the enrollment of H.R. 1473.
Pursuant to House Resolution 218, the gentleman from Mississippi, Mr. Nunnally, and the gentlewoman from Connecticut, Ms. DeLauro, each will control 10 minutes. The chair recognizes the gentleman from Mississippi.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that all members may have 5 legislative days which to revise and extend their remarks and include extraneous material on House Concurrent Resolution 36.
Without objection, so ordered.
Now, Speaker, I would like to yield myself 2 minutes.
Gentleman is recognized for 2 minutes.
This resolution would deny funding to Planned Parenthood. It's morally wrong to have taxpayer dollars from my constituents in Mississippi or from any other state go towards organizations that provide abortions. Since 1977, Planned Parenthood has assisted in aborting the lives of over 5 million children. This resolution before the House is simple and straightforward. Now, there will be those who will frame the resolution as a debate over denying health care benefits for women. This isn't the case. In fact, in this resolution, not one dime of women's health or family health planning funding is reduced. It simply says those dollars cannot go to Planned Parenthood. This is an organization that has protected those who prey on our children and has protected those who rape our granddaughters. Planned Parenthood holds itself to be above the law by ignoring mandatory reporting requirements, by skirting parental consent, by aiding and abetting child trafficking. They put quick and secret abortions ahead of the welfare of victimized young girls, and it has to stop. Now, those who oppose this resolution are enabling them. I refuse to reach into the pockets of our taxpayers to fund this sort of activity. I've always viewed these young women as much of a victim as the unborn child. And I want to go after those corrupt and immoral businesses that exploit them. We did a pretty good job of running them out of the state of Mississippi. In fact, in November, Mississippi will have on its ballot a ballot initiative that defines personhood. And over 106,000 Mississippians put the signatures on the initiative to get this on the ballot. And Planned Parenthood is a political organization and is funding the opposition to this ballot. Bottom line, we need to deny funding to those agencies that support abortions, and this resolution will do that.
The gentleman reserves his time. The gentlelady from Connecticut.
I yield myself 2 minutes.
Gentlelady is recognized for 2 minutes.
I rise in opposition to this concurrent resolution. It has nothing to do with the budget and everything to do with ideology. This is an attempt to turn back the clock on women's health and basic rights. The majority wants to impose their traditional view of a woman's role and take us back to a day when family planning was not available. With this resolution, the majority aims to exclude one specific health care provider, Planned Parenthood, from all federal resources. This will needlessly put lives in danger. Planned Parenthood carries out millions of life-saving preventive and primary care services every year. They deliver immunizations, routine gynecological exams, nearly 1 million screenings for cervical cancer, 830,000 breast exams, and nearly 4 million tests and treatments for sexually transmitted infections like HIV every single year. If this resolution passes, all of these services would be lost. 75% of their more than 3 million patients live at or below 150% of the poverty level, make less than $33,000 for a family of 4. 1 of every 5 women in America has gone to Planned Parenthood for access to health care. 60% of these women consider Planned Parenthood their main source of care. And in fact, even the number of men Planned Parenthood serves has doubled over the past decade. All of these women and men would lose access to these services if this should pass. This resolution guts a primary source of care for millions of American families. We all know this has nothing to do with federal funding of abortion. Federal funds are already banned from going towards abortion services under the Hyde Amendment. We should not be playing political games with women's lives. I urge my colleagues to oppose this dangerous resolution and to stand for women's health, and above all, to trust women to make the right decisions. I reserve the balance of my time. I yield.
Support of the gentlelady's position on Planned Parenthood and urge a no vote on this concurrent resolution.
Gentlelady's time has expired.
A minute to the front. She's got to go.
The gentleman from Mississippi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to yield 2 minutes to the gentlelady from Tennessee, the principal sponsor of the bill, Ms. Black.
Gentlelady is recognized for 2 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As a nurse for over 40 years, I've spent my entire career protecting life. And those who need the greatest protection are those who have the least voice. That is, children born and unborn. Now, as a member of Congress, I will continue to fight for the rights of the unborn through this legislation, as we have here today. And today, I am here as a sponsor of this resolution to ensure that no federal funds are used for either the promotion or the performance of abortions. Now, there are people around who will want to lead you to believe that this bill is about Republicans wanting to deny women access to preventive care. But they are using scare tactics, and their lies are distracting you from the real facts. As a matter of fact, Title X funds, which fund these types of preventive care for women, will continue to fund those organizations and agencies that provide preventive care but do not provide either the promotion or abortion services. What my colleagues and I are here today is standing up and saying we do not want to support federal funding of any organization that promotes or performs abortions. Now, there is an urgent need to stop taxpayer dollars from funding abortions, and the Republican majority in the House has already made clear our commitment to ending the funding for Planned Parenthood, which is, by the way, America's largest abortion provider. Now, the Senate has ducked this legislation and this important discussion for this legislation for too long, and it's time that the senators debate this in the open, as we have here in the House in H.R. 1, and take a vote to end taxpayer funding of Planned Parenthood. I yield back my time.
Gentlelady yields back. The gentlelady from Connecticut.
I yield 1 minute to the Democratic leader.
The gentlelady is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I thank the gentlelady for yielding and for her forceful leadership in promoting women's health. Mr. Speaker and my colleagues, when I was in high school a long time ago, I participated in an extemporaneous debate contest. One of the contestants there, a friend of mine, drew from the bowl a slip that said, "Do women think?" Do women think? Now, this was a long time ago, but even then, we thought that was a startling question. Do women think? The young lady who drew it, she was really a girl in high school, but who drew it, spoke with great grace and strength about women and won the debate, which we hope to do today. I hadn't thought of that debate for a long time, but it came rushing down on me as I heard our Republican colleagues put forth their cuts on women's health, especially eliminating funding for Planned Parenthood. The arguments which the Republicans have put forth sound like the same questions of a decade ago. Do women think? It's an assault on the judgment of women. It bespeaks a lack of respect for women to determine the size and the timing of their families. It's clear that Republicans do not support family planning. It's hard to understand, but it's clear that they don't, and have used the debate on this bill to spread misinformation about the critical work that Planned Parenthood does on behalf of America's women every day. So let us be clear. Planned Parenthood health centers currently provide preventive services to millions of women in need of health care, including the provision of contraception, cancer screening, breast exams, and HIV testing. Further, this debate is not about abortion. That is because federal funding for abortion is already prohibited. That is the law of the land. This debate is about women's health. Every year, Planned Parenthood health centers provide this for women's health: contraception to nearly 2.5 million patients, nearly 1 million Pap tests identifying about 93,000 women at risk for developing cervical cancer, 830 breast exams helping alert patients to possible cancers. And that is why cutting off federal funding for Planned Parenthood would have a devastating impact on women's health across the country. Indeed, more than 90% of the health care provided by Planned Parenthood is preventive care. For majority of the women who use Planned Parenthood health centers, the centers are the primary source of receiving health care services. Elimination of funding means that these women do not have health care of any kind. Today's legislation, which has no chance of passing the Senate and becoming law, thank God, is just part of the Republican agenda that is the most comprehensive and radical assault on women's health and reproductive freedom in our lifetime. And that's saying something. Further, I point out that today, on the floor of this House, this is the 100th day of the Republicans having the majority. Here we are again debating legislation that has nothing to do with the #1 priority of the American people, creating jobs. Indeed, after 100 days, the Republicans have not created one job and have not offered a jobs agenda and are instead on the march against women's health and to end Medicare in order to give tax breaks to big oil and millionaires. Some Republicans say that we're here because we did not pass a bill last year. It was shocking to hear even some members of the Appropriations Committee who should know better on the Republican side say that. But indeed we did. It was held up by Republicans in the Senate. We passed it in the House without one Republican vote, the omnibus bill, but it was held up by the Republicans in the Senate. And in that bill, we cut $41 billion from the President's budget. So today, when I hear our colleagues say we're cutting $78 billion, 38 today, 37.5 today, the other 41, which is a larger amount, the largest amount, was cut by the Democrats without one Republican vote at the end of last year. Today, in this latest partisan maneuver, Republicans are perpetrating an attack on the health of women across the country, and I rise in strong opposition to their efforts. We must all stand strong against that agenda against women's health. We must all continue to work to create a healthier America, and that is why I urge a yes to women's judgment, a yes to respect their decision on the size and timing of their families, and a no for this vote, which is an attack on women's health. With that, I yield back the balance of my time.
He yields back. The gentleman from Mississippi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to yield 2 minutes to the other principal sponsor of this bill, the gentlelady from Alabama, Ms. Roby.
Gentlelady is recognized for 2 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I ask unanimous consent to revise and extend my remarks. It is an honor today to stand on the House floor as one of the sponsors of House Concurrent Resolution 36. Since coming to Congress, I have come to the floor several times to talk about my stance on abortion and the need to defund Planned Parenthood, and I am pleased to be a part of the lead on this important issue today. Mr. Speaker, I am unapologetically pro-life and will continue to do what is necessary to protect the lives of the unborn. Every 2 minutes a life is lost because of an abortion. That adds up to 3,300 lives a day, or 1.2 million a year. I believe I have an obligation to do everything I can to fight for the unborn and to prevent taxpayer money from funding abortions. Therefore, I urge my colleagues to vote in favor of the piece of legislation in front of us today. It would prevent federal funds in H.R. 1473 to go to Planned Parenthood, an organization that provides more abortions than any other organization in the United States. About 1 of every 4 U.S. abortions is performed at Planned Parenthood location or one of their affiliates. Data shows that since 1970, Planned Parenthood has performed at least 5.3 million abortions, and that includes over 332,000 abortions in 2009 alone. Planned Parenthood has made plain the centrality of abortion to its mission, mandating that every affiliate have at least 1 clinic performing abortions within the next 2 years. My colleagues opposed to this piece of legislation will claim that the money that Planned Parenthood has been receiving is not used for abortion. I disagree. Money is fungible. By taking away federal funds from Planned Parenthood, they will have to spend more of their private money on basic services and overhead costs rather than diverting those funds toward abortions. From 2000 to 2009, Planned Parenthood saw an 80% increase in taxpayer funding that resulted in a 69% increase in the number of abortions and a 61% decrease in the number of adoption referrals. I urge my colleagues to vote yes on preventing Planned Parenthood access to federal funds in fiscal year 2011. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield back.
Gentlelady's time has expired. The gentlelady from Connecticut.
I yield 1 minute to the gentlewoman from New York, Ms. Lowy.
Gentlelady from New York is recognized.
I rise in strong opposition to the resolution. The right wing's failed radical attempt to block funding for Planned Parenthood has now devolved in procedural games instead of a renewed focus on creating jobs. Federal law prohibits federal dollars for abortion, and family planning saves taxpayers nearly $4 for every $1 spent. If Republicans were serious about deficit reduction, they would increase these investments instead of demonizing those who provide affordable access to Pap tests, breast exams, routine gynecological exams, flu vaccinations, smoking cessation services, cholesterol screening, contraceptives, and all of the other services that Planned Parenthood provides. Vote no on this assault on women's health.
Gentlelady's time has expired. The gentleman from Mississippi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to yield 1 minute to the gentleman from Indiana, Mr.
Gentleman from Indiana is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I ask unanimous consent to revise and extend my
Without objection.
I thank the gentleman for yielding. I believe ending an innocent unborn human life is morally wrong. I also believe it's morally wrong to take the taxpayer dollars of millions of pro-life Americans and use it to subsidize the largest abortion provider in America. Today, Congress will vote to do something about that. Planned Parenthood is the largest abortion provider in America. As this chart shows, in 2009, Planned Parenthood made 977 adoption referrals, had 7,021 prenatal care counseling sessions, and performed 332,278 abortions. During that time, Planned Parenthood received $363.2 million in taxpayer money. Planned Parenthood received $1 million a day and performed about 1,000 abortions a day. H-Con Res 36 will only put an end to taxpayer subsidy of Planned Parenthood. Despite the hyperbolic rhetoric of the left, this resolution will not cut 1 penny from Title X women's health services. It merely denies funds to the largest abortion provider in the land. I want to thank the leadership of Speaker Boehner. I want to urge my colleagues to stand with all of us, to stand for life, to stand for taxpayers. Let's end public funding of the largest abortion provider in America.
Time of the gentleman has expired. The gentlelady from Connecticut.
I yield 1 minute to the gentlewoman from Colorado, Ms. DeGette.
Gentlelady is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, I don't know how many times this Republican leadership is going to make the House take the same vote again and again to deny women the basic health care they need. But repeating these votes just exposes the extreme agenda that the American people didn't ask for and that they don't want. Continuing to debate defunding women's health care clinics like Planned Parenthood is not getting less offensive, it's getting more offensive every day. And the American public won't stand for this extreme agenda. Not one federal dollar goes to fund abortions, not by Planned Parenthood, not by anybody. The last speaker was just plain wrong when he said this resolution would not reduce money for women's health. It would cut millions of dollars from women's health. Let me tell you about a young woman from my district in Denver, Colorado. She hasn't ever had health insurance, but she took responsibility for her own health care, and she had her first annual exam and pap smear at Planned Parenthood when she was 18 years old. Now she's pregnant, and she depends on Planned Parenthood for her prenatal care so she and her baby can be healthy. And Planned Parenthood is her only health care provider that she's ever had. Vote no on this extreme resolution.
Time of the gentlelady has expired. The gentleman from Mississippi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to yield 1 minute to the gentleman from New Jersey, Mr. Smith.
Gentleman from New Jersey is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you very much for yielding. Mr. Speaker, in its slick TV ads and PR blitz, the multi-billion-dollar-a-year abortion giant Planned Parenthood appears to be hiding something. Could it be that they're hiding the dismaying fact that just one organization, Planned Parenthood, performs over 25% of all abortions in America? No other chain of abortion mills even comes close. Or is it the fact that 97% of all the so-called services rendered to a woman with child end in an abortion? Or the fact that since 1977, Planned Parenthood has deliberately caused the brutal death of well over 5.4 million babies, a staggering loss of child life. And in 2009 alone, 332,278 babies were killed in Planned Parenthood clinics. There is no organization in America, Mr. Speaker, perhaps even on earth, that stabs, dismembers, decapitates, or chemically poisons more unborn children to death than Planned Parenthood. And that's the reality of what abortion does to a child. For the innocent and perhaps inconvenient child in the womb, a Planned Parenthood clinic is a house of horrors, a place where abortionists brutally destroy children and deceive and hurt their mothers. Vote for the resolution.
The gentleman has expired. The gentlelady from Connecticut.
I yield 1 minute to the gentleman from Ohio, Mr. Ryan.
Gentleman from Ohio is recognized for 1 minute.
I thank the gentlelady. Mr. Speaker, this is about prevention, this is about women's health, and this is about making sure that we reduce the need for abortion in the United States of America. And how we got so illogical to think that if we could give poor and middle-class women access to birth control, that somehow is going to increase the abortion rates in the United States is beyond me. And we see our friends time and time again talk about respecting life. And I see many instances on the other side of the aisle that ends once the baby is actually born. Respecting life means early childhood health care. It means affordable health care for families. Those are life issues. Early childhood education, Head Start, Pell Grants. Those are about making sure that citizens in the United States of America can have life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. In this bill, if we pass and defund this organization, we will have more problems on our hands, more breast cancer, more cervical cancer, and it's going to be more expensive. And all these folks on the other side that want to run government like a business and make good investments, you can't make better investments than preventative health care like this organization provides. And with that, I yield back the balance.
Gentleman's time has expired. The gentleman from Mississippi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to yield the balance of my time. Reserve the balance of my time.
Gentleman reserves the balance of his time. The gentlelady from Connecticut.
I yield 1 minute. This time I'd like to yield 1 minute to the gentlelady from California, Ms. Lee.
Gentlelady from California is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in strong opposition to the Republican war on women, and that is what this is. Republicans have already moved to ban the District of Columbia from using its own money for abortion. Shameful. Now they want to go after America's most trusted provider of health care services for women. Shameful. In many underserved communities, Planned Parenthood is the principal source of basic primary health services for poor and low-income women. Last year, millions of women received breast and cervical cancer screenings, testing, treatment for sexually transmitted infections, HIV and AIDS, and family planning and contraception, mind you, through Planned Parenthood. Planned Parenthood saves lives. This is not about abortions. Only 3% of the services they provide involve abortions, and the law already prohibits federal funding for abortions, though this law really should be repealed. This does not reduce the deficit nor create jobs. Family planning programs actually save taxpayers $4 for every $1 we invest in them. This is really about pandering to the extreme right wing that wants to take us back to the days of back alley abortions. They want to deny family planning and basic health care services for women. This is a war on women.
Time of the gentlelady has expired. The gentleman from Mississippi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to yield 1 minute to the gentleman from Alabama, Mr. Adderholt.
Gentleman from Alabama is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today in strong support of the resolution. While I respect my colleagues who are against this resolution, let me say that I believe that federal funds should be cut off from Planned Parenthood. As previously stated on the floor by my colleagues, the resolution does not reduce funding for women's health services. It simply ensures that funds are directed to other organizations. Not a dime of women's health or family planning funding is reduced by this resolution. We simply want to ensure that federal funds are being used in a way that protects the will of our constituents, not to help subsidize Planned Parenthood. Planned Parenthood is the largest abortion provider in the nation, providing over 300,000 abortions for 2009. Over the years, Planned Parenthood has increased their abortion in numbers every year, while adoption and parental care remains way too low. Mr. Speaker, I urge my colleagues to vote yes on this resolution, and I yield back the balance of my time.
Yields back his time. Gentlelady from Connecticut.
If I might inquire.
Gentlelady has 3 minutes, and the gentleman from Mississippi has 1 minute left. Gentlelady from Connecticut.
I yield 1 minute to the gentlewoman from California, Ms. Roybal-Allard.
Gentlelady is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, I rise in strong opposition to this concurrent resolution. Planned Parenthood is a safety net that helps Americans stay healthy by providing primary care services such as breast cancer, screenings, immunizations, and annual exams. Women also receive preventative care that helps lower cancer deaths, heart attacks, and cases of undiagnosed and untreated STDs. As the largest provider of family planning, it helps women and men become parents when it makes the most sense for them. The attacks on Planned Parenthood are underhanded tactics using inaccurate statements and statistics. A perfect example is the recent claim that abortions make up 90% of their services. This gross statement has been refuted by hard numbers which show these services were less than 3% of the care provided in 2009. At the expense of critical health care for millions of Americans, these attacks are another irresponsible diversion from the fact that Republicans have failed to take one action to create jobs. I urge my colleagues to oppose this resolution.
Gentleman from Mississippi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to yield 30 seconds to the lady from Ohio, Ms. Schmidt.
Gentlelady is recognized for 30 seconds.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. You know, times are tough, including in Congress, and we have to find wise ways to spend our taxpayer dollars. For every 33 pregnant women that walk into a Planned Parenthood clinic, 32 receive an abortion. Planned Parenthood does over 1,000 abortions a day, and they receive $1 million a day from taxpayers. The time has come to stop funding Planned Parenthood. We have better ways to spend our taxpayer dollars. Let's put it back to the Treasury and reduce the deficit. I yield back.
Gentlelady's time has expired. Gentlelady from Connecticut.
I yield 1 minute to the gentlewoman from California, Ms. Capps.
Gentlelady is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in strong opposition to this mean-spirited resolution. It's yet another attempt by the Republicans to play politics with women's health care, part of their broader priority to reopen the culture wars. But the lies that have been tossed around in this debate are an insult to the 3 million Americans who used Planned Parenthood services this year. Nearly two-thirds of those who visit a Planned Parenthood consider it to be their main source of health care, their mainstay, their lifeline. In my own district, Planned Parenthood of Santa Barbara, Ventura, and San Luis Obispo counties serves over 31,000 patients a year. I must ask the supporters of this mean-spirited resolution, where should these 31,000 people go? They have no answer, just inaccurate talking points and a demonizing, we know best attitude. Instead of taking away women's access to health care, let's turn to working on what they really need, a stronger economy and meaningful job opportunities. So please join me in voting no on this mean-spirited resolution. I yield back.
Gentlelady's time has expired. Gentlelady from Connecticut.
Just an inquiry about the amount of time left.
You have 1 minute.
I thank the gentleman. Last week, my Republican colleagues were prepared to shut down the federal government over women's health. If you can imagine that. Turned this country into chaos because of women's health issues. Today, they continue to treat women as second-class citizens. They would treat women with a lack of respect, denigrate them, and undervalue women in our society today. That is what this debate is all about. They would deny women basic health care, and because we in this House of Representatives have health care, they don't care much about what's happening to those whose primary care is at this facility. For cancer screenings, I am a survivor of ovarian cancer. I know what it means to be screened, to be diagnosed, and to be told I have a serious illness and that I have the opportunity to get well. Trust the women of this nation. Trust them. Vote against this misguided resolution.
Gentleman from Mississippi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The House has before it today an important question, but it's not a new question. It's a question of old. This day, I put before you the choice of life or death. Today, we choose life. Thank you.
Gentleman's time has expired. All time for debate has expired pursuant to House Resolution 218. The concurrent resolution is considered read, and the previous question is ordered. The question is on adoption of the current resolution. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it.
Mr. Speaker, I ask for
the
take of the yeas and the nays.
Mississippi rise. Ask for the yeas and nays. The yeas and nays have been requested. Those favoring a vote by the yeas and nays will rise. Sufficient number having risen, the yeas and nays are ordered. Pursuant to Clause 8 of Rule 20, further proceedings on this question will be postponed. Pursuant to Clause 8 of Rule 20, proceedings will resume on questions previously postponed. Votes will be taken in the following order: House Concurrent Resolution 35 and House Concurrent Resolution 36. The first electronic vote will be conducted as a 15-minute vote. The remaining electronic vote will be conducted as a 5-minute vote. The unfinished business is the vote on adoption of the House Concurrent Resolution 35, on which the yeas and nays were ordered. The clerk will report the title of the concurrent resolution.
House Concurrent Resolution 35, concurrent resolution directing the Clerk of the House of Representatives to make a correction in the enrollment of H.R. 1473.
The question is on adoption of the concurrent resolution. Members will record their votes by electronic device. This is a 15-minute vote.
Three votes on the House floor. The first two are resolutions that were considered as part of the debate on the fiscal year 2011 continuing resolution. The first resolution to be voted on would block funds to implement the health care law passed last year. Second vote would stop federal funds for the organization Planned Parenthood. And the third vote in this series is a motion to adjourn. So the first vote here, a 15-minute vote. On that continuing resolution, that passed not long ago on the House floor. The vote was 260 to 167, 179 Republicans and 81 Democrats voting in favor, 59 Republicans and 108 Democrats opposing the measure, including former Speaker Nancy Pelosi, who tweeted, "I voted no on the CR today. We can do better by women, students, D.C., and investing our future." She spoke a short while ago on the House floor as well. President Obama, meanwhile, heads to Chicago this evening. He will headline three fundraisers there, fundraisers for his presidential reelection. This after formally declaring his candidacy for reelection a week ago or so. Earlier today, though, the president met in the Oval Office with Erskine Bowles and Alan Simpson, the former co-chairman of the President's Debt Commission, and they talked about the president's debt and deficit reduction plan that he announced yesterday in Washington.
Yesterday, I laid out a plan to cut $4 trillion from our deficit. It is a balanced plan that asks for shared sacrifice in order to provide shared opportunity for all Americans. And I'm very pleased today to have Erskine Bowles and Alan Simpson, the chairs of my fiscal commission, because very frankly it is the framework that they developed that helps to shape my thinking on these issues. As they pointed out in their bipartisan effort, it is important that we put everything on the table. We've got to take some tough decisions when it comes to domestic spending. We've got to look at everything, including our security spending, in order to achieve the goal that we need. It's important that we look at our tax code and find a way to work together to not only simplify and make the tax system fairer, but also that we use it as a tool to help us achieve our deficit targets. And it's also important, and I think these gentlemen share the view, that we can't exempt anybody from these efforts, that it's not appropriate for us to ask for sacrifices from everybody except for the 2% of Americans who are doing best, but rather we should ask everybody to participate in this effort to get our fiscal house in order. So my main purpose here today is to once again thank them for their outstanding work, but more importantly to solicit their ideas in terms of how we move forward. No matter how we may disagree between parties, no matter how much we spend time debating the issues, at some point we're going to have to come together as Americans. And yesterday I brought together the leaders of both chambers, leaders of both parties, to discuss with them how we could start moving rapidly to get some of these major issues resolved. And I'm pleased that Vice President Biden is going to be heading up that effort, but we're going to need the help of citizens who served this country in extraordinary ways in the past and are continuing to do so in their spare time. I'm looking forward to having them as partners in order to get this done. So, thank you very much.
Following the meeting, the former commission co-chairman spoke with reporters outside the White House.
We had a very serious, very constructive meeting with the President. Lasted over an hour. He had the Vice President, the Secretary of the Treasury in there, the head of the National Economic Council, the Chief of Staff, and he gave us a chance to talk about our ideas. He was very candid in saying that he's come forward with a plan that's largely built on the recommendations that we put forward. I think he's come out with a solid, responsible plan. While it doesn't have as much deficit reduction as quickly as we do, he does get to $4 trillion worth of deficit reduction. So what Al and I believe is now's the time for action. This era of deficit denial has to end. It's over. This is the moment of truth. We have the President's plan out there. You have the Ryan plan. You have the Commission. And now we hope that this gang of six, these six very brave, bold senators, Senators Conrad, Crapo, Coburn, Chambliss, Durbin, and Warner, will be able to take these recommendations, the best parts of each of them, and come up with a legislative language plan that we can vote on, act on, and we can do something serious about taking down this deficit. So we found it to be a very constructive meeting. We were very pleased.
I think the best thing, many good things in there, is that Joe Biden will be the point person. He has a remarkable political gift, and he can do things. He has the President's full accord. So he discussed some of the things he would do. There was a lot of note-taking as to the next step, and the next step is the key, is the gang of six. We think they're all in there aboard, and at some point very soon, I think they will put out their plan. And then, if anybody else wants to put in a plan, we suggest that they do so. And that would be a wonderful thing. And then we'll just mess around in all the plans and see where's the best result. But the figures of our commission, Erskine and my and the others, and the White House, are very close. The gang of six will be very close. Mix them all up. Paul Ryan's got a plan. Jan Schakowsky had a plan. We'll look at them all and do what you do when you legislate, which is like making sausage.
Yeah, the important thing is that we have action, that we reduce these deficits by $4 trillion over this next decade. We bring down these deficits so that America can be competitive in this global economy.
Did you ask the president what took them so long to get this report?
Well, actually, I know, and you know, as many of you know, Al and I had encouraged him to go earlier, and I think we were probably wrong in what our recommendation was. They told us to have patience. They said that they were wanting to get through this short-term problem that we have with this year's deficit, which ended up with $38.5 billion worth of bipartisan deficit reduction. And once they got by that, they were ready to tackle this long-term problem. So I think their timing was fine.
How likely do you think it... speech yesterday impacts the chances of reaching a bipartisan deal?
I'm much more worried about the substance than I am tone. The substance was fine, and I think that's where I'll stick with my comments.
How likely is it that they'll be able to reach a final deal by the end of June, which is the president's target date?
I don't think anybody has a crystal ball, but I do think we have a framework set up. Every single plan is talking about $4 trillion worth of deficit reduction. That's the key, and now what we have to do is take the best ideas out of all plans and get to real action.
How about you, Senator? How likely do you think it is that they'll get one by the end of June?
Having spent 18 years here and watching people set dates is a lost cause. It's the goofiest thing you can do is say by this date we're going to be there. It is just impossible to say, and if you give a number, then the next month's just, well, here the date is passed, you're going to give it, and it just isn't worth it.
But we're going to keep working at it.
Is that we have a big problem. The president knows it. Ryan knows it. The Dems know it. The Gang of Six know it, and the American people know it, because I have a simple thing when I travel the country. My vast travels, like getting out of the witness protection program with Erskine, is I just say, I got two things to say to you. If you spend more than you earn, you lose your butt. And if you spend $1 and borrow 40 cents of it, you got to be stupid. And that's everybody who believes that any government can spend $1 and borrow 40 cents. And this is what we're going to correct with the White House, the House, and the Senate. It will work. I don't know when.
Senator Simpson, what did you think of the tone of the president's speech? Erskine Bowles and Alan Simpson at the White House earlier today. Just a reminder, you can read the president's debt and deficit reduction plan, which he announced yesterday. We have linked that on our website at cspan.org. 3 votes on the House floor. The first 2 are resolutions that were made in order as part of the debate on the continuing resolution. This first vote would block funds to implement the health care laws passed last year. Second vote coming up, stopping federal funds for Planned Parenthood. Third vote will be on a motion to adjourn. This is a 15-minute vote, and the next 2 will be 5-minute votes. The continuing resolution did pass in the U.S. House just a short while ago, 260 to 167, 179 Republicans, 81 Democrats voting yes, 59 Republicans, 108 Democrats voting no. And among those Republicans voting no, Mike Pence, who tweeted that he opposed the CR today because in the face of our fiscal crisis, this budget deal is not good enough. It heads to the Senate next, following the resolution of these first 2 votes anyway. And the president, if it passes, the Senate has to sign it before Friday at midnight. Here in the House, once they wrap up this series of votes, they're headed to 4 hours of general debate on the fiscal year 2012 budget resolution. That is ahead. Over in the Senate earlier today, Harry Reid, the majority leader, and other Democratic senators spoke to reporters about the spending and budget measures that are making their way through the House and Senate today. We're going to show you some of that news conference while this vote continues.
We're here today to talk about how unfair the Ryan Republican House budget proposal is. The House budget is so unfair to many different people in our country, but the one I want to talk about for a few minutes today is what it does to Medicare recipients. And I have some foundation to understand the difference between having Medicare and not having Medicare. My first elective job was in Southern Nevada. I ran from Clark County to be elected to a hospital board of trustees of then Southern Nevada Memorial Hospital, which was the largest hospital district in the state at the time. In many respects, it was an indigent hospital. But during my first period of time on that hospital board, when seniors came to that hospital, 40% of them had no health insurance. They had no way of paying. And when they came into that hospital, a father, brother, mother, son would have to sign for them, or a neighbor. Somebody would have to be responsible for that bill. If they didn't pay the bill, we had a huge collection agency would go after those people to make sure the bill was paid for the care that old person got when they came into the hospital. While I was on the hospital board, Medicare came into being. And after Medicare came into being, people that came into that hospital who were over age 65 didn't have to worry about their hospital bill being paid. That's the difference. Now, is Medicare a perfect program? Of course it isn't. There are a lot of things that can be done to make it better. But I know the difference. I've seen the difference between having Medicare and not having it. And what the House Republican budget proposal does as it relates to Medicare changes Medicare as we know it. It in fact turns it over to the insurance industry, and people basically would be left looking for a doctor who would take their case, and a lot of them wouldn't, because it would be such a lost art to get paid for that. So we're comfortable that we have to have a different approach. I'm very satisfied with the direction the President is taking. He has been, he's cast a wide net, making sure that there's going to be some shared sacrifice, which is so very, very important to work our way through this budget problem that we have. Senator Durbin.
Thanks, Senator Reid. I've spent some time both on the Fiscal Commission and now in another conversation on the budget reflecting on how you reach $4 trillion. And when the House Republican budget came out, I took a look at it and I saw how they did it. First, virtually no cuts in terms of Pentagon overspending and waste. Virtually none. Then when it came to the revenue side, they ended up saying we need to continue the tax cuts for the wealthiest Americans as we try to bring down our deficit. So virtually no revenue being generated toward the deficit. Where are the cuts coming? Well, they're coming from domestic programs like the ones we just debated, but more importantly, as the Majority Leader just noted, they're coming from Medicare. The House Republican budget will end Medicare as we know it. After 50 years of success proven by the fact that seniors now live longer, they're stronger, they're more independent, and they're healthier than they ever were before Medicare, the House Republicans have said we want to end Medicare as we know it. How do they want to change it? They want to more than double the out-of-pocket expense for senior citizens across America to continue under something they call Medicare. And when it comes to the Medicare prescription drug benefit, they add another $3,000 in cost. Our rough estimates today means that it will be an additional out-of-pocket expense each year for every senior qualifying for Medicare of more than $10,000 for Medicare premiums as well as prescription drugs. You tell me how the millions of Americans who are retired on fixed incomes can possibly come up with $10,000 a year to keep the care they have today. That's the wrong way to go. And if that's the way the Republicans believe we're going to balance the budget in America, at the expense of senior citizens under Medicare, I think they're in for a rude awakening. Medicare is a program that is extremely popular. It has liberated seniors so they can have the very best quality care. They can live independent, strong, and healthy lives because of Medicare. The House Republican budget would put an end to that.
Thank you. And the President's speech has framed a debate with Republicans that will rage long after we resolve the debt ceiling. The debate is a debate we welcome. We've been waiting for it. It is a debate we will win. It is quite a different debate than the one we will finish up today after we pass this year's budget. That debate was important, but the one to come has much higher stakes. The debate about this year's budget was about spending levels. The debate ahead of us is about more than spending levels. It is about the role of government itself. It will be one of the seminal debates in the first quarter of this new century and will determine what America is like. And as I said, the fact that the President has drawn a clear distinction with the Republicans and their Ryan budget brings the debate finally to a head, and we welcome it. The House Republicans aren't trying to balance the budget. They fundamentally want to alter Americans' relationships with their government. Tomorrow they will vote on their 2012 budget. It has created waves of controversy for good reason. The budget plan would end Medicare in order to pay for an extra tax break for millionaires. The Paul Ryan budget proposal would bring down the top rate from 35% to 25%. This would make it the lowest level for the very wealthy since 1931, when Herbert Hoover was president. Talk about trying to turn back the clock. In order to pay for each millionaire to get a new $200,000 tax break, the Republican plan would force 33 seniors to pay an additional $6,000 for health care. We have the opposite approach. Our plan is to protect Medicare, end extra tax breaks for millionaires, and put it towards reducing the deficit. If we're serious about reining in Medicare spending, there is a far better starting place than the Ryan budget. It's the health care bill passed by Congress last year. Republicans are patting themselves on the back lately for leading on entitlement reform, but when it comes to reining in the runaway costs of Medicare, the truth is the President did it first, and he did it better. Medicare has cost issues, no doubt, but we should mend it, not end it, as the Ryan budget proposes. In recent weeks, they've been patting themselves on the back for taking on the tough challenges. But a closer look at Congressman Ryan's proposal shows it's not bold at all. In leaving Pentagon spending untouched and revenues untouched, this budget hews exactly to his party's orthodoxy. It doesn't gore a single Republican ox. It is a rigid ideological document, and those columnists who are saying it took courage, I don't buy it. The President's budget takes an all-of-the-above approach to tackling our deficit. It has balance. Unlike the Republican plan, it puts the middle class first. So we urge House Republicans to go back to the drawing board and come up with a fairer proposal than the Ryan budget. No plan to end Medicare as we know it will ever pass the Senate. They should take off their ideological straitjackets, and if they do, we can reach a compromise on the deficit in the coming months. Speaker Boehner needs Democrats to pass this year's CR budget. He will need them to pass a long-term deficit reduction plan as well. The sooner he abandons the Tea Party, the sooner we can have a compromise. We hope the coming debate will yield a compromise, but if it can't, we'll be happy to take this contrast of priorities into 2012. Now, finally, Democrats have the high ground.
You know, the last couple of years have been very instructive to families and to businesses and to communities and to agencies across this country as the economy went decidedly bad and people had to come together at every level to say, how do we balance our family budget or our business budget or our community budget? And they have learned a very important lesson, that everybody has to sacrifice a little to get to a place where they're more secure. Families have done this, businesses have done this, government agencies at every level have done this. That's what they expect us to do as well. And they're very clearly focused on that. So when the Republican budget came out and everybody said, where are the sacrifices? It was very clear. There's a lot of sacrifice in that budget except for one group of people, millionaires and billionaires. They have been walled off and said, you don't need to sacrifice, but the rest of you really do. Families, businesses, people across this country don't see that as fair, and neither do we. Everybody has to sacrifice to do.
On this vote, the yeas are 240, the nays are 185. The concurrent resolution is agreed to, and without objection, a motion to reconsider is laid upon the table. If the House will be in order, House will come to order, please. Quiet. Members, please take their seats. The House will come to order. House, please come to order. Please quiet. Please take your seats. Well, the extremely without objection, and the extremely distinguished gentleman from Michigan is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I thank you for the recognition. I take pride in announcing to the House that our good friend and colleague, Mr. Markey of Massachusetts, is joining a select group of members who have cast 20,000 votes in this great body.
Thank you.
I know, Mr. Speaker, that the members wish to congratulate this distinguished member for a long period of outstanding service to the public. I yield back the balance of my time.
Gentleman yields back. Without objection, 5-minute voting will continue. The unfinished business is on the vote on adoption of House Concurrent Resolution 36, on which the yeas and nays were ordered. The clerk will report the title of the concurrent resolution.
House Concurrent Resolution 36, concurrent resolution directing the clerk of the House of Representatives to make a correction in the enrollment of H.R. 1473.
The question is on adoption of the concurrent resolution. Members will record their votes by electronic device. Again, this is a 5-minute vote.
By a vote of 240 to 185, the House votes to block funds to implement the health care laws passed last year. Second vote here on a bill that would stop federal funds for Planned Parenthood. Both of these passing in consideration, or being voted on in consideration of the continuing resolution for fiscal year 2011. The CR passed in the House this afternoon by a vote of 260 to 167. And the whole package will be headed over to the Senate before too long. David Hawkins of CQ writes that those sidebar amendments, these two resolutions on the health care law and on Planned Parenthood, will not get the necessary 60 votes in the Senate, but the appropriations package will be cleared with a bipartisan majority that's comfortably above the 60-vote threshold. Felisa Sonmez, who writes the Two Chambers blog for the Washington Post, talks about the health care vote that just happened. She says that vote marks the second time the House has taken aim at the entire national health care law. It voted to repeal the law back in January. Also news from the House floor today, Congresswoman Shelley Berkley will run for the U.S. Senate seat, which is now being held by Nevada Republican John Ensign. The campaign released a statement today here in Washington pitting the 7-term Democrat from Las Vegas in a race against Northern Nevada GOP Congressman Dean Heller. And in other political happenings today, in Manchester, New Hampshire, Mississippi Governor Haley Barbour is going to be there. We're going to cover that Road to the White House event. Our coverage gets underway at about 5:30 Eastern, and that'll be live on C-SPAN 3. President Obama, meanwhile, heading to Chicago for a series of fundraisers. The president headlining 3 fundraisers in Chicago, his first since formally declaring his candidacy for re-election a week and a half ago. And one of those we're going to show you tonight live on C-SPAN 2. That's set to get underway at 10:30 Eastern. The Associated Press writes that these are his first stops in a series of fundraising kickoffs that will take him to San Francisco and Los Angeles next week, and New York the following week, and elsewhere. This is the second in a series of 3 votes, this one on defunding Planned Parenthood, and then the next vote on a motion to adjourn. And then the House moves on to 4 hours of general debate on the Republican spending plan for fiscal year 2012.
The yeas are 240, the nays are 184. There is 1 present. The concurrent resolution is
Ms. Granger. Ms. Granger votes aye. Ms. Lowy. Mrs. Lowy votes no.
On this vote, the yeas are 241, the nays are 185, with 1 answering present. The concurrent resolution is agreed to, and without objection, a motion to reconsider is laid upon the table. For what purpose does the gentleman from Illinois rise?
Mr. Speaker.
Gentleman is recognized.
I'd like to move that the House do now adjourn.
The question is on the motion to adjourn. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed say no. The noes have it. For what purpose does the gentleman rise?
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to request the yeas and nays.
Does the gentleman request a recorded vote?
Mr. Speaker, I request a recorded vote.
Gentleman requests a recorded vote. Those favoring a recorded vote will rise, a sufficient number having arisen. A recorded vote is ordered. Members will record their votes by electronic device, and this will be a 15-minute vote.
In what should be the last vote in the series, a vote on a motion to adjourn, which gets 15 minutes here on the House floor. But the House wraps up work on the continuing resolution for 2011, passing that and related resolutions regarding the implementation of the health care bill and funding of the health care law, rather, that was passed last year, and also on defunding Planned Parenthood. And all of that moves over to the U.S. Senate, where it is likely to pass in the Senate later today. Still to come on the House floor, they will consider the fiscal year 2012 budget proposal, the Republican plan for the next fiscal year. 4 hours of general debate coming up and consideration of the Democratic substitute as well. No votes on that are likely tonight. All of that will probably move into tomorrow in the U.S. House. Some political news for you. We are covering a 2012 event, Road to the White House event, with Haley Barbour. The Mississippi governor is in New Hampshire, and he will be speaking about his plans to run for the presidential nomination. We'll bring you live coverage beginning at about 5:30 p.m. Eastern. That'll be on C-SPAN 3. President Obama, meanwhile, has just left Washington, headed to Chicago. 3 Democratic fundraisers there, his first since formally declaring his candidacy last week. He'll be speaking in Chicago this evening at 10:30 at the Navy Pier there. That'll be live on C-SPAN 2. A 15-minute vote on the House floor on a motion to adjourn. Still ahead, 4 hours of general debate on the Republican plan for fiscal year 2012 and consideration of the Democratic substitute. So plenty more debate ahead, though votes are probably going to happen tomorrow in the U.S. House. So during this 15-minute vote, we're going to bring you comments from the White House earlier today, following the President's address yesterday on his debt and deficit reduction plan. White House Budget Director Jacob Lew spoke to the press at the White House. He talked about the 2012 budget as well as entitlement programs, and we will show you as much of his comments from this afternoon as we can during this 15-minute vote.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for being here. I don't have any opening announcements to make. I have with me today Jack Lew, the Director of the Office of Management and Budget, someone you all know very well. What I'd like to do is have the top portion of this briefing, if we could take questions that you might have about the President's speech yesterday, the policy vision he laid out, and the process that he's put in motion to try to realize that vision. We'll do all those questions at the top. Jack is here to answer a significant portion of them. Others I might answer. But Jack's going to have to leave at a point after that, and I don't want to have to restart the briefing. So if we can I'll go on and answer questions on other subjects, but let's do this subject at the top, and then we can move on to other things. With that in mind, I'll start with the Associated Press. Jim.
Thank you. Jack, the President is calling for $1 trillion in tax revenue over 12 years, and that's in addition of over the roughly $700 billion from the expiring Bush-era tax provisions. Can the President guarantee that that extra $1 trillion is not going to touch anybody but that top 2% of earners? And if that's the case, does that mean that the wealthiest Americans are going to have like a $1.8 trillion new tax burden?
Well, to be clear, the expiration of the tax rates that were in the Bush tax cut are assumed in our budget because the President, as I said yesterday, will not agree to extend them again. On top of that, the President has proposed that we go through a process of tax reform where we broaden the base and we eliminate the exclusions and preferences, tax expenditures. And if you look at where the benefit of those tax expenditures go, the vast majority of special provisions and preferential rates are for those with the highest incomes. And it's certainly not necessary to have broad-based tax increases in order to get the savings that were in the package that the President outlined yesterday.
So you say most of the benefits go to, does that mean that those are the only places that those savings would be targeted?
In order to achieve the savings that were outlined yesterday in the framework, it is not necessary to go below that point, to go below the threshold. And that's what the President has proposed.
So it's not necessary to go below $250,000 at all? No one under $250,000 will get a tax increase.
$250 per family, $200 for an individual. $250 for
no tax increase for anyone making under $200,000 a year.
Obviously, we're talking about a proposal. The President has put forth a framework, and that is what the President has proposed, yes.
Okay, if I could follow up. The tone of the President's speech yesterday, he talked about the Republicans' pessimistic view of America and how they want to break the social compact. Then he talked about finding common ground, and I'm wondering what part of the pessimistic vision he can embrace.
Well, a fair question, Jim, but I think I would point out that what the President did yesterday was describe the vision put forward by the House Republican plan and describe his own vision, the vision that he thinks is preferable and which is embodied in the proposal he then put forward. What is true is that these are competing visions and that these are contentious issues. There's a long history in Washington of contentious issues being resolved in a bipartisan way. It's been done under Ronald Reagan and Tip O'Neill. The first President Bush, as President Obama pointed out yesterday, President Clinton with Speaker Gingrich. This, just because there's a lot of heat in these discussions, in these debates, a lot of firmly held convictions, doesn't mean that we cannot come together and find common ground. The President believes that. But he also thinks it's very important to make clear what his vision is and to contrast it to the vision put forward in the House Republican budget. That's an important thing to do. It does, but he still very firmly believes that we can find common ground, just as we did last week and in December, and as previous presidents dealing in a similar divided government situation have done to achieve big things in the past. So the confidence is there, the optimism is there, and he looks forward to the process that he initiated yesterday, moving forward quickly because he thinks this is important work that needs to get done. Dan.
How does Social Security fit into that vision in terms of raising the retirement age to 70? Perhaps what's the White House position?
Well, I think Jack can handle the policy side of that. Go ahead.
The President has, on a number of occasions, including yesterday and going back to the State of the Union, made clear that he thinks that it's important that we deal with Social Security and that we deal with it now. But Social Security is a different issue than these other fiscal challenges. The real problem is a 75-year problem. The problem is that we have an obligation to keep Social Security sound so that people who are working today and who are going to be retiring and getting benefits many years from now can count on the system. Social Security did not cause the deficit we have now. Social Security ran a surplus for many, many years, since 1983. And the Social Security Trust Fund was built up to a point where if we weren't in the bad fiscal conditions we were in, it would be in fine shape. So it's not fair to put it in the same place as other things that are being discussed for deficit reduction. It is a parallel and important challenge, but it's not the same. And we would very much like to engage in a process to work through Social Security, where we learned in the 1980s. I was involved in 1983. I was involved in 1981 and 82 when we didn't have such great consensus on Social Security. I was involved in 1983 when we did. When reasonable people look for the sensible middle, you can agree on Social Security. It's actually not as complicated as a matter of policy as health care is. And we need to get to the process of having that conversation without coming with preconditions and lots of statements in advance. The suggestion that we should be laying down a policy on Social Security, my own view as somebody who's lived through battles on Social Security is that's not the way to advance the dialogue. As soon as one party lays down a position, the other parties take a counter position. The way to make progress on Social Security is to say we're going to protect Social Security for 75 years. We want to do it in a way that's reasonable and balanced, and to have the conversation. So I think the President's shown leadership on it on a number of occasions, putting it out there in the frame, which I personally believe is the way you can make progress.
Let me get to Jeff.
Thanks, Jay. May I ask kind of a wonky question? Another area where the Republicans and Democrats don't necessarily agree is on the debt limit. Is the White House, is the administration preparing contingency plans now already for the possibility that the debt ceiling will not be extended, such as through a staggered default?
I think one of the very encouraging things about the leadership meeting yesterday was that all parties agreed that it's unthinkable that the United States would not be able to meet its obligations on its debt. The full faith and credit of the United States is something that we have a real obligation, a trust relationship with our people not to undermine. And that's why we've said these issues shouldn't be connected. The debt limit should just be extended, and we need to have this urgent debate on our fiscal condition. I think that Secretary of Treasury has made clear in his communications with Congress what kinds of flexibility he has if we reach a debt limit, and they're very limited. It's been his view, and I think correctly, that there should be no misunderstanding of what our levers are, what our options are. So we've been transparent with the Congress. There isn't anything else that, besides what the Secretary of the Treasury has shared with Congress, and everyone should know that it's not like the government shutdown. It will be a very bad thing if all of the cable TV stations have countdown clocks to government default. The fact of anticipation would in and of itself undermine our position as an economic power. So nobody should be playing chicken with the debt limit. We should get it done. We should get it done soon, early, and get it out of the way.
How much? Can you address the wonky part, though? Is staggered default something that the White House is looking at in terms of contingency planning?
We have outlined to the Congress all of the levers that we have.
Jay.
Jack, if you could help us understand some of the more stark depictions that President Obama laid out yesterday of the Ryan plan. He said that 65-year-olds would have to pay $6,500 more in their Medicare. He said 50 million Americans potentially could lose their health care. I assume that's combined with the repeal of the health care bill, is that right, or no, the 50 million number?
I'd have to go back and check.
But in any case, he said that seniors wouldn't be able to afford nursing homes, poor children would lose their health care, middle-class families who have children with disabilities would not be able to care for them. Could you explain how the Ryan plan would do that?
So let me go through the pieces. It really flows from several different pieces of the Republican budget. On Medicare, the proposal that they've put forward is that we basically move from where we are now, which is a defined benefit plan, to a system which, if it were in the private sector, you'd call it a defined contribution plan. There's a bit of disagreement as to what it's called. The congressman calls his plan premium support. We've called it vouchers. I will just say that the people who designed the idea of premium support have said they don't think it's premium support. So this is not something that we've said. I mean, if you talk to Henry Aaron or Alice Rivlin, both of whom have embraced the idea of premium support at various points, they've said that this is not what it means. But the way it would work is that instead of getting a benefit package when you turn 65, which is what happens now, you'd get a check. You'd get the ability to pay a premium. The problem is it won't cover the cost of the package. If the package gets more expensive, the retired person would be on their own. The estimate that the President used reflects the fact that between out-of-pocket expenses and premiums out-of-pocket, a senior citizen would have to spend $6,400 more. Now, we think that takes you back to what were the pre-Medicare days, when many, in fact, most old people couldn't afford health insurance. Most old people don't have $6,000 to spend out of pocket, and if you have to choose between a health insurance premium and food on the table, that's a very bad choice to force people to make in their retirement.
$6,400, where does that come from?
It's a combination of what the estimated cost of the Medicare package would be plus the out-of-pocket expenses under insurance. So it's a calculation that's been worked out based on where you would be under the current system versus where you would be if the Republican plan were to take effect. Now, it's clear here where they get the savings. I'm not going to challenge that there are savings. What they've said is that the risk of escalating health care costs...
The yeas are 11 and the nays are 412. The motion is not adopted. For what purpose does the gentleman from Wisconsin rise?
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that all members may have 5 legislative days in which to revise and extend their remarks and include extraneous material on H. Con. Res. 34.
Without objection, so ordered.